Bible Answers
with Dr. Al Garza.
All right, welcome back to Bible Answers. I am your host, Dr. Al Garza. Now, today I'm going to record a very short audio podcast here dealing with my book, The First Trinity. And I'm going to answer a question that comes up quite a bit, and I'm going to refute some of the things that were made about my book regarding the First Trinity as written by Moses, who Abraham saw, and so forth. Now, I'm going to set the record straight, and I am going to pretty much show conclusively that the three that Moses wrote about, identified as, of course, the Lord, the Word, and the Messenger, how all were called Yod-He Vav-He by the name identified, Adonai, Jehovah, if you want to say, or Adonai, Yahweh, however you want to pronounce the name. But I want to make this clear. All three, and I'm going to show you two places where all three are identified as the Adonai, Yod-He Vav-He, or Jehovah, as well as appearing to Abraham, and then once again appearing to Elijah as all three. Now, this appearance to Elijah is what's going to refute every person who denies that the Trinity, or that all three are separate and distinct, and who appears as God himself, the Word, and the Messenger. This is going to affirm it. This cannot be refuted. It's clear as day when you link these books together in regards to what Moses wrote and what you find in 1 Kings with Elijah. Now, as I have in my book, and as you can see in my other videos, I'm not going to go too much into this, but you can see how I lay out that when Moses is writing, he starts off in Genesis 12 with Abraham, where the Lord appears to Abraham, tells him to go to the land where he's going to send him. He tells him to leave his father's house and go to the land where he's going to possess. And then we have, again, in Genesis 15, we have this time the word of the Lord appearing. Now, the word of the Lord in chapter 15, in verse 2, is identified by Abraham as Adonai, Yod-He Vav-He, Yahweh, however you want to pronounce it. He's identified that way. So, that's the first two. And you'll see a distinction being made here between Genesis 12 and Genesis 15. Where in 12, he appears, he tells Abraham to go. 15, it's the word of the Lord according to Abraham. And of course, Abraham calls out to him by the very name, the compound, Adonai, Jehovah, Adonai, Yahweh. And then he tells him and affirms to go to the land where he's going to possess. And then, very interesting, in chapter 16, we see for the first time the messenger appear. Now remember, the word of the Lord first appears in the entire Bible here in Genesis 15. And he appears, according to Abraham, as Adonai, Jehovah. And then the messenger, for the first time in Genesis 16, appears as the messenger of the Lord. Again, these are two nouns in a construct state that show that they are the same. And so Moses says at the very end in verse 13 that it was the Lord himself who spoke to her. And of course, Hagar identifies the one speaking to her as the El who sees her, or who sees all. And she talks about, I have remained alive here after seeing him. So who she saw as the messenger of the Lord, according to Moses, she identifies as El, and she remained alive. And Moses said it was the Lord himself speaking to her. So you have, of course, the Lord, Yod-He Vav-He in Genesis 12, the word of the Lord called Adonai, Jehovah in Genesis 15, and then 16 you have the messenger as the mighty one, El, the Lord who spoke to Hagar, according to Moses, who she says sees everything about her and she remained alive. Now, of course, in my book I deal with the three who appeared to Abraham in Genesis 18 and 19, and of course all three are called Adonai, the plural name of God, and Yod-He Vav-He distinctively in Genesis 18 verses 1 through 3, Genesis 19:2, 19:18, and 19:24, where you've got the Adonai and the name all implied. Now, many people try to make excuses for this, and some might say, "Oh no, that the word of the Lord is the Lord. It's nobody different. It's just now the word speaking and so forth, but it is God Himself." And of course, they'll make this argument that the messenger is a representation of the Lord and that he represents him, or maybe it's the Lord appearing as a messenger, that he can make that as that way. So we have this explanation, but here's the interesting thing. Nobody can get away from the fact that these three were identified as the Lord himself. That's a fact, all three. Now, if you want to argue that all three are the same person just appearing in three different ways, well, you're going to have a serious problem. Or if you say that the word of the Lord is not the Lord, or actually he is the Lord, but it's more of a spoken thing, it's that way, then I want you to turn to 1 Kings 19, where Elijah, after fleeing from Jezebel, is going to the mountain of God. And he's fleeing there to go seek the Lord himself. But on the way, he goes and he goes along the way, and all of a sudden the angel of the Lord comes to him and feeds him twice. In 1 Kings 19, verses 4 and 5, and even in verse 7, the angel of the Lord came again a second time and touched him and said, "Arise, eat, because the journey is too great for you." So he arose and ate and drank and went in the strength of that food 40 days and 40 nights to Horeb, the mountain of God. So we see that the angel of the Lord appears to him and feeds him and tells him to go to the mountain of God. So that's the first person that appears. Now, this also disproves that Jesus is not the angel of the Lord, because when he gets there, he says, then he came there to a cave in verse 9 of chapter 19, 1 Kings. He came there to a cave and lodged there, and behold, the word of the Lord came to him. And he said to him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" Now, I want you to think about this. The word of the Lord appears and says, "Why are you here? What have you come here for, Elijah?" Now, this is going to be identified as who John 1:1 says, the word of the Lord who was with God and who was God. This is the one who was in the beginning. In the beginning was the word. This is the word of the Lord who appears to Elijah after the angel of the Lord just appears to him. Now, they're not the same person. This is the word who became flesh as the Messiah right here. He's not the angel of the Lord. The clear distinction being made right here in 1 Kings 19. So the word says, "What are you doing here?" And then what does he say? Elijah says, "I have been very zealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the sons of Israel, forsaking your covenant." Now he's talking to the word, forsaking your covenant, torn down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword, and I alone am left, and they seek my life to take it away. So Elijah is addressing the word of the Lord as your covenant, your altars, who killed your prophets. Now remember, the word of the Lord made a covenant with Abraham and a possession for the land. So this is the Lord as well. And this is the word of the Lord who Abraham identified as Adonai Jehovah, or Yod He Vav He in Genesis 15. The same word of the Lord appearing here, who Abraham identified as the Lord, as Yahweh himself, appears here, and Elijah addresses him, your covenant, your altars, your prophets. And how does the word respond? So he said, the word of the Lord said, "Go forth and stand on the mountain before the Lord, and behold, the Lord was passing by." So there's number three. There's number three. Three distinct appearances by the messenger, the word, and the Lord himself, just like we saw in Genesis. There is no way around this. They're identified by Moses in Genesis and by Abraham as all three being Yod He Vav He, Jehovah, the Lord, the mighty one, who Hagar saw, who Abraham met twice in 12 and 15, the three men who appeared, who all identified as Adonai, Yod He Vav He, and now Elijah sees all three. And he calls the word of the Lord, your covenant, your people, your altar, your prophets. And then he says, go stand. The word of the Lord says, go stand in the mountain, and behold, the Lord was passing by. This cannot be explained away. You have a clear distinction of all three by Elijah himself meeting all three, which you saw in Genesis. So this cannot be refuted. This cannot be explained away by some mere, a shiliach, an agent, da-da-da-da. No. If you take it from Genesis, they appeared separately, and then the Abraham all together, and then Elijah saw all three. So again, this is a clear-cut understanding. This is also my book, The First Trinity, where I make this distinction as well. And I want to say, if you want to challenge it, please, by all means, challenge it. Explain it away. I don't want to hear commentary, comments. Explain who Elijah was seeing, who he identifies in connection with who Moses said appeared to Abraham as Adonai Jehovah. Cannot get around it, specifically by Elijah in chapter 19. So I hope this helps understand more clearly the connection between all three appeared between Moses, Abraham, and Elijah now. And if you have any questions, please leave them here. Like, comment, and share on my YouTube channel. And this is my podcast, Bible Answers. So I want to say thank you, have a great day, and God bless.
Bible Answers with Dr. Al Garza.